up. It is Friday, April 30th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. It's been a very, very busy day, and I was also on Roland Martin Unfiltered today, discussing some current topics. And one of the topics that we discussed was out of Florida. Okay. I don't know if you heard about this, but this article, this information just came out. Well, this information came out on Thursday. But Florida passes a voting law that includes restrictions on vote by mail and drop boxes. Now, this is a new voting restriction law in Florida. Democratic State Representative Omari Hardy blasted the legislation as the revival of Jim Crow in Florida, as the revival in Jim Crow in Florida. And if you know anything about the history of Florida, you know that Florida was one of the few states where you would lose your voting rights for life if you were convicted of a felony. Okay, this is Florida. All right, so we're going to talk some about that. We discussed that on Roland Martin Unfiltered as well today. And then there was a story. There was a story that we did not get a chance to talk about that ties into our discussion dealing with African American farmers. So, you know, we've talked about how the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, how that included $10.4 billion to go to farmers, and $5 billion of that 10.4 was going to African American farmers. And that was addressing a history of discrimination when it came to the U.S. Department of Agriculture and loans being made to African American farmers. And you've heard Lindsey Graham, who has spoken negatively about the money that is in the bill going to African American farmers. But keep in mind, Lindsey Graham did not vote, well, no Republican in the Senate or the House of Representatives voted for the American Rescue Plan, not a single Republican. But Lindsey Graham has been blasting, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, little spineless Lindsey Graham. He's been blasting the $5 billion that was set aside for African American farmers. He does not want to deal with the history of racism and discrimination the farmers have suffered. Okay, he doesn't want to deal with that at all. Well, now you have some white farmers who are suing, seeking government loan forgiveness. Okay, but they haven't dealt with a history of discrimination and racism from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and things like this. Okay, but you have now, if you go back and you listen to Senator Tim Scott, who's the junior senator from South Carolina. Okay, Lindsey Graham is the senior senator from South Carolina. Tim Scott is the junior senator from South Carolina. Okay, you know, he gave the rebuttal Wednesday night to Joe Biden's address to a joint session of Congress. All right, and people are talking about him saying, Tim Scott saying that America's not a racist country. Okay, now we dealt with this on Thursday's show. What they're not talking about is what he said right after that. Okay, this Tim Scott. Okay, right here. Now Tim Scott looks like he's related to Mushmouth from Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. All right. Okay, so Google Mushmouth from Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. All right, and Look at Tim Scott. They look like they're brothers. Okay, so you did this to yourself, Tim Scott. Don't get mad at me. You did this to yourself, player. So I want you to hear an interview that John Boyd Jr. did talking about the discrimination that African American farmers have suffered. Now, there's 6,000 black farmers in South Carolina. Lindsey Graham is not doing anything for them. I don't think Tim Scott is doing anything for them either. Maybe he is. I don't know. Haven't heard anything about it. We know Tim Scott didn't vote for the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that was that allocated $5 billion to African American farmers. We know he didn't vote for that, so I'm not sure what he's doing for them. But now you have white farmers who are suing. A group of Midwestern farmers, and we're going to pull this article up. This is from the Dispatch. Now, we had a good show today, Roland Martin Unfiltered. The panel was only on for an hour because Roland was on the Young Turks show. He was doing a simulcast with the Young Turks for the second hour. So we covered a lot of topics. This is one topic that I was hoping that we would cover because I've been talking about this a lot on this show because this really ties into history. And we did not get a chance to discuss it today, so we're going to discuss it here. Let me flip back over. Let me pull this up here. Where is that article? Right here. White farmers sue seeking government loan forgiveness. Now, what's interesting is when Lindsey Graham was going on his diatribe on Fox News, talking about how it's unfair that African American farmers were receiving his money, he didn't deal with the history of 100 years of discrimination against African American farmers and why they were receiving the money. He didn't want to talk about this. Well, Tim Scott, in his rebuttal on Wednesday, after he said America is not a racist country, he then said using discriminatory practices to address discrimination doesn't solve the problem, it's not fair, something like that. This is what he was talking about. He's talking about that money that African American farmers got because Lindsey Graham has been on cable news attacking that. This is something that Tim Scott is talking about. And now, keep in mind, Tim Scott has also said he's not voting for reparations in the U.S. Senate. Okay, Tim Scott is African American. In case you couldn't tell, maybe your color tube or something's wrong with your television. Tim Scott said he's not voting for reparations. A group of Midwestern farmers, we look at this article here from the Columbus Dispatch. A group of Midwestern farmers sued the federal government Thursday, alleging they cannot participate in a COVID-19 loan forgiveness program because they're white. The group of, now, did y'all hear about this? Okay. The group of plaintiffs includes farmers from Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and South Dakota. According to the lawsuit, the Biden administration's COVID-19 stimulus plan provides $4 billion to forgive loans for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers who are Black, American Indian, African American, American Indian, Hispanic, Alaskan Native, Asian American, or Pacific Islander. White farmers are not eligible, amounting to a violation of the plaintiff's constitutional rights, the lawsuit contends. Okay, now, I hope they have some historians. If they're suing the government, I hope on the government side they have some historians that want to deal with this history. Because, see, African American farmers have lost 92% of their land over the last 100 years. And white farmers, many white farmers were able to stay in business during the Great Depression because they were getting loans from the federal government that African American farmers were discriminated against. We lost over 200,000 farms just between 1930 and 1939. We lost over 200,000 farms, and we were being discriminated against by the U.S. government when it came to low interest loans that they were giving out to farmers. Now, if we look at this other article here, this is the right one. Let me pull this up, and we're about to go to break. So we're going to jump into all this. But see, all this ties into history, okay? And this is why history is so important. This is why it's so important to understand racism. Now, I find it interesting that Tim Scott wanted to say America's not a racist country, but he didn't want to define what racism is. See, racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, privileges, land, access to education, access to opportunity, money, laws, policies, media, healthcare, and they use that to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. Now, if we look at this article here from, this is rawstory.com. You know, we've talked about this before. This is John Wesley Boyd Jr., okay, and this is Senator Lindsey Graham. All right. Black farmer Lindsey Graham must apologize for racist comment about subsidies kept from farmers of color for years. Okay, see, Lindsey Graham, when he was running his mouth talking about the money that was going to farmers, he didn't want to deal with the 100 years of racism that they endured. Now, John Wesley Boyd Jr., when he was interviewed by Reverend Al Sharpton, we're going to play that clip on the other side of the break. He said, I want to reiterate that sentence. Now, that's a big word, Lindsey Graham. Okay, that means he wants to restate. Okay, I want to reiterate that since 1910, Black farmers have lost 92% of their land. Since 1910, Black farmers have lost 92% of their land, some 12 million acres, largely due to systematic racism. Now, see, Lindsey Graham just said in the past few days, systemic racism doesn't exist. So what you want to do is you want to put blinders on and say systemic racism doesn't exist. Then when you have a reallocation of funds, of resources to address the systemic racism, then you want to call that out and ignore why you had to pay out the money in the first place. Then you have the junior senator from South Carolina go out and do and address the millions of people, say America's not a racist country, and then say that using policies that discriminate to address discrimination, that's no good either. This is a bunch of nonsense. We're going to deal with this on the other side of the break. This is the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. How's everybody doing? Stand by. All right, if you like this type of information, also you can support the African History Network. We definitely need your support. $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. When you do it through Cash App, be sure to type in $, the AHN show, and it'll show my name. It'll say Michael, and then it'll show my picture there also. All right, stand by. We'll be back in just a minute here. All right, back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Stand by. We're back from break in 2 minutes. All right, stand by. Back from break in 1 minute. Stand by. Stand by. Back from break in just a minute. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Friday, April 30th, 2021, and we are live. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. So be sure to follow us there and share this broadcast on your social media platforms. All right, now I want to, before we go back to the story here dealing with white farmers sue the federal government seeking loan forgiveness. I want to remind you that my new online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, starts up Saturday, May 1st, 2021. It's an online course. It's a 9-week, 18-hour online course. We deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You can watch from around the world. I do it online. The classes, we do the classes live. You can ask questions during the class. Also, we have a live text chat, so I can't see you. You can see me. All the sessions are recorded. Okay. So you can go back and watch it over and over again. All the sessions are archived. You can go back and watch it over and over again, watch from around the world. You'll have access to the classes even after the course is over with. It's regularly $130. It's on sale $80. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, where they didn't teach you in school. So we just posted the link here. Click on the link. You can register for the online course. As soon as you register, you can. I just had a class that ended last week. As soon as you register, you can watch the class. It just ended last week. All the sessions are there. Okay. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, everything. And we deal with ancient Africa. We deal with ancient Egypt, Nubia, Ta-Nehisi. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. And we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay. All right. So, and then we also have the information on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So as soon as you register, you can start watching the content. All right. So right before the break, we were talking about this story here, and we were supposed to talk. This was one of the topics we were going to talk about on Roland Martin Unfiltered, but we ran out of time and did not get a chance to discuss it. So we're going to talk about it here, and then we're going to go to. I want to go to the story dealing with Florida, okay? Because all this ties into politics. All this ties into racism. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, which comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. All right, so all of this is connected. All right, and then also, Kevin, I got to send you this other clip here. Let me see, is this in here? Let me see, hold on. I have to send you this other article. I think it has one of these has the statement from one of these has the statement from Tim Scott. I gotta find that article again. It's from CNN, and because I want to hear Tim Scott's statements dealing with racism. All right, okay, because I find it interesting when you have somebody. Now, Tim Scott will speak out against police brutality, not as much as he should, but he will speak out that some because he's been on the Senate floor and talked about how he feels he was the victim of racial profiling sometimes when it comes to police stops. Okay, but on a lot of this stuff, he doesn't go far enough. All right, I'm gonna send you this. I got to send you this other article here, Kevin, and it has the clip in it. It's right at the top. Has the clip in it. This is from CNN. All right, so I'm gonna send this to you now. All right, so let's look at this article here from the Columbus Dispatch. Let's go back to this one from the Columbus Dispatch, dealing with the white farmers suing the federal government. White farmers sue government seeking loan forgiveness. Okay, so a group of Midwestern farmers sued the federal government Thursday, alleging that they cannot participate in a COVID-19 loan forgiveness program because they're white. Now, the group of plaintiffs includes farmers from Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota. According to the lawsuit, the Biden administration COVID-19 stimulus plan provides $14 billion to forgive loans for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers who are African American, American Indian, Hispanic, Alaskan Native, Asian American, or Pacific Islander. White farmers are not eligible, amounting to a violation of the plaintiff's constitutional rights, the lawsuit contends. Okay, now the lawsuit says, quote, were plaintiffs eligible for the loan forgiveness benefit, they would have the opportunity to make additional investments in their property, expand their farms, purchase equipment and supplies, and otherwise support their families and local communities, the lawsuit said. Because plaintiffs are ineligible to even apply for the program solely due to their race, they have been denied the equal protection of the law and therefore suffered harm. Wow, that sounds like the history of African people in this country. That's not, see, once again, they don't want to deal with the 100 years of racism and discrimination that Black farmers have suffered through. The U.S. Department of Agriculture issued a statement saying it was reviewing the lawsuit with the U.S. Department of Justice, but the U.S. Department of Agriculture plans to continue to offer loan forgiveness to socially disadvantaged farmers. Now, attorneys for the conservative Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty filed the action on the white farmers' behalf in federal court in Green Bay. The filing seeks a court order prohibiting the USDA from applying racial classifications when determining eligibility for loan modifications and payments under the stimulus plan. It also seeks unspecified damages. Now, minority farmers, their word, not mine, minority farmers have maintained for decades that they have been unfairly denied farm loans and other government assistance. You're dealing with a history of white supremacy and racism. The USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, in 1999 and in 2010, settled lawsuits from African American farmers accusing the agency of discriminating against them. Yes, they did. Okay, and you had the Pickford lawsuit was one of them back in 1999. Still, less than 2% of direct loans from the Trump administration in 2020 went to Black farmers. Now, why isn't spineless Lindsey Graham talking about this? Why isn't spineless Tim Scott talking about this? Less than 2% of direct loans from the Trump administration in 2020 went to Black farmers. And some African-American farmers have criticized Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack for failing to address a backlog of discrimination complaints and failing to hire minorities for high-level positions. Now, Tim Vilsack was the Secretary of Agriculture under the Obama administration. Joe Biden brought him back. Now, a lot of the Black farmers were saying, look, he mistreated us when he was Secretary of Agriculture before. Tom Vilsack has said that he's going to basically correct that behavior. Vilsack did an interview with the Washington Post. We talked about that here. And I want to pull up this article here from the Washington Post, because in this interview, Tom Vilsack, the new Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, talked about the loans that were given, the subsidies given out by the Trump administration. Okay, now let's look at this here. Now, why wasn't Tim Scott, spineless Tim Scott, why wasn't he jumping up and down, okay, and calling this out under the Trump administration? Why wasn't spineless Lindsey Graham, and both Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham, they have 6,000 African-American farmers in South Carolina, and they're not doing anything for them. Now, look at this article here from the Washington Post. We talked about this article here on this show, because all that gossip and all that nonsense, we don't have time for that. We deal with like real topics, okay, real substance here. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack says only 0.1% of Trump administration's COVID farm relief went to Black farmers. Where's Tim Scott? Where's Senator Lindsey Graham? Lindsey Graham is speaking out when you had Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator Cory Booker, who are advocating on behalf of African-American farmers. And Senator Raphael Warnock introduced the Justice for Black Farmers Act. They're the ones that put that money into the COVID, the American Rescue Plan, the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. That's how that money got in there. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack says only 0.1% of Trump administration's COVID farm relief went to Black farmers. Okay, now this is from March 25th, 2021. If we look at this here, Tom Vilsack was interviewed by the Washington Post. He said, of those who identified their race or ethnicity, Black farmers received only $20.8 million of nearly $26 billion in 2 rounds of payments under the coronavirus food assistance program announced by the Trump administration in April 2020. He said, we saw 99% of the money going to white farmers. Why? Where's Lindsey Graham? Where's Tim Scott? We saw 99% of the money going to white farmers and 1% going to socially disadvantaged farmers. And if you break that down to how much went to black farmers, it's 0.1%. It's 1/10 of 1% went to African-American farmers. He said, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack said, look at it another way. The top 10% of farmers in the country received 60% of the value of the COVID payments, and the bottom 10% received 0.26%. Now, I find it interesting that behind stuff like this taking place, now you want to have white farmers suing, who say, you know, their constitutional rights have been violated and all stuff like this, but you're not addressing the past 100 years of history that caused African-American farmers largely to lose 92% of their land, and the discrimination that they suffered when it came to government loans. Let's look at this some more, then we'll go to the phone lines. So stand by. Okay, we got the clips ready. Stand by. So Tom, okay, I want to go back to the one from the Columbus Dispatch. Okay, we'll go back to this, and then we have to squeeze these clips in also. Then I have to get out of here. I have a class to teach. Tom Vilsack, who served under the Obama administration and returned to the role after President Joe Biden took office, because Joe Biden said, look, the Department of Agriculture was screwed up under Trump. Joe Biden said, I need somebody who knows how to run this department, who can hit the ground running. So that's why he tapped Tom Vilsack again. Tom Vilsack said in a statement last month that generations of socially disadvantaged farmers have suffered due to systemic discrimination and a cycle of debt. Tom Vilsack is white, for those that don't know. This is what Tom Vilsack said in the interview with the Washington Post. He's laying out the history of discrimination against African-American farmers coming from the federal government. Tom Vilsack said he has been trying to assure minority farming groups that he will work to stem racism within the USDA, within the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Civil rights advocates have hailed Joe Biden's stimulus plan as a means of finally helping farmers of color. But then you got Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott attacking this. Okay, now this is what we're going to do, Kevin. I want to go to the clip that I just emailed you from Reverend Al Sharpton from YouTube. I want to go to that clip. Okay, let me introduce it right quick. Now, this is Reverend Al Sharpton back in March, right around March 14th. He interviewed John Wesley Boyd Jr. John Wesley Boyd Jr. is the president of the Black Farmers Union. Okay, John Wesley Boyd Jr., rightfully so, called out Lindsey Graham for attacking the $5 billion in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that's going to African-American farmers. All right. Okay, let's go to this clip, Kevin.
The President's newly passed COVID relief package aims to correcting a historic wrong, allocating $5 billion with a B dollars in aid to the nation's black farmers, who have seen nearly all of their farmland lost over the last century, having been largely shut out of federal programs that benefited their white peers. But rather than view their aid as helping a historically disenfranchised group, Republicans have, of course, called it racist and tagged it with that other R word, reparations. Joining me now John Boyd Jr., founder and president of the National Black Farmers Association. Mr. Boyd, as you just read from my intro, I want to reiterate that since 1910, Black farmers have lost 90% of their land, some 12 million acres, largely due to systematic racism. For our viewers, what does that discrimination look like? Specifically where banking and access to federal aid are concerned. You and I have talked about this for years. You've been on the forefront of it. Explain what has happened historically and why this means something.
Well, Reverend Shelton, thank you for having me. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for helping me with the Claims Remedy Act of 2010 that helped nearly 20,000 Black farmers receive their settlement from the United States Department of Agriculture. But what this new measure does is it rectifies a wrong for Black and other farmers of color. We've been totally shut out of the U.S. Farm Subsidy Program, U.S. Farm lending at the United States Department of Agriculture, farm rural development loans. We've been totally shut out. And under the last administration, Reverend Sharkin, they told out $29 billion to primarily white farmers in this country, where Black farmers didn't participate at all. And when we put this bill in a part of the COVID relief bill, 10 senators sponsored amendments to pull our language out. And Senator Lindsey Graham, who was a very outspoken critic, said it really bothered him that we were a part of the spending bill. So we've been having an uphill battle for decades, and we've been fighting this fight for a very, very long time, and now's the time to change it. And right now, Reverend Sharpton, for the first time in history, we have a Black in the Ag Committee, Chairman Scott. We have 2 Blacks on the Senate Agriculture Committee, Senator Warnock and Senator Booker. And we have a president and vice president that certainly want to help and receptive to helping our nation's Black farmers.
Now, let me go back to what you said, because as expected, the assistance to Black farmers contained in the president's relief package has been attacked as racially discriminatory, perhaps the most vocal detractor being, as you mentioned, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, who has called the aid reparations. Just listen to this.
In this bill, if you're a farmer, your loan will be forgiven up to 120% of your loan, not 100%, but 120% of your loan if you're socially disadvantaged, if you're African-American, some other minority. But if you're white person, if you're a white woman, no forgiveness as reparations.
Now, clearly he has no problem with or interest in fixing the systemic discrimination that Black farmers have faced for decades. But that's to be expected. What are your thoughts on the senator's complaints, though, Mr. Boyd?
Well, I'll tell you, Reverend Sharpton, I lobbied Senator Lindsey Graham as a congressman. I lobbied him as a senator. I've been by his office and asked him to help me fix the problems at the United States Department of Agriculture that caused Black farmers to lose millions of acres of land and address the lack of loans and subsidies. And he's never once used his megaphone to speak out against the discrimination. But as soon as we get justice here, some 30 years later, his very first words, he said he found it troubling. And in his last part of his statement, he said, well, we need to check them. He should have been checking us when we came by his office to ask him to help fix the problems at the United States Department of Agriculture. He should have been checking us when we were sharecroppers and survived Jim Crow. Members of Congress like Senator Lindsey Graham should have been checking us. So I find his comments racist, and we're calling on him. The National Black Farmers Association is calling for him to apologize, Senator Lindsey Graham, and we're making that announcement on your show. He needs to apologize not only to Black farmers, but to Black people in this country who struggled for so very, very long, and now we get a chance for a little bit of justice. And he uses his megaphone to play this race type thing when he knows firsthand that Black farmers have suffered. When he has 6,000 Black farmers in his state, and he won't help us, but he uses his megaphone to try to deny payment from Black farmers.
You know, a century ago, there were 1 million black farmers. Now there are fewer than 50,000. According to the Department of Agriculture, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack says he's aware of the disparity and wants to grow more farmers of color. Apart from this relief package, where should he start?
He should start, just like you said, immediately to get the debt relief out to the thousands of black farmers that desperately need it right now. And I spoke to Secretary Vilsack yesterday and urged him to hurry up and put in place the commission and to get the debt relief to not just black farmers, but farmers of color, Native American farmers, Hispanic farmers, and other socially disadvantaged farmers. He can't be the same Secretary Vilsack he was under the Obama years. He's going to have to take a more aggressive approach to help fix our culture, the discriminating culture, Reverend Sharpton, because nobody has been fired for the act of discrimination, for discriminating against me and thousands of other black farmers. Yeah. The only I know that was fired was Shirley Sherrod. She was fired the next day. We need accountability for those people who were found guilty of discriminating. Some heads need to roll so that people know that this can't be the same old United States Department of Agriculture. And Secretary Vilsack needs to make a quick announcement that USDA is open for business for blacks and other minority farmers.
All right. I'll have to leave it there, but you worked on this a long time. I've been there with you, and I'm glad to see some light in this darkness. Thank you.
All right. So that was that's from about March 14th, 2021. Reverend Al Sharpton on Politics Nation interviewing John Wesley Boyd Jr. And John Boyd Jr. was calling out spineless Senator Lindsey Graham. And read this article here from rawstory.com. Name of this article, Black Farmer Lindsey Graham must apologize for racist comment about subsidies kept from farmers of color for years. And he talks about in here how Lindsey Graham has 6,000 black farmers in South Carolina, and he's not doing anything to help them. Okay, very quickly here. Let's go quickly here to the phone lines. We have, let's see who we have here. We have William. Hey, William, thanks for holding. Welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from, William.
Calling from West Williamson. That was a good summary and good history. And I just want to say that that just goes to put it pointedly. Anytime it appears that blacks are going to receive any kind of monetary benefits, they change the rules.
Well, and not only that, man, not only that, you look at what happened after the 2020 presidential election. Now Republicans are trying to push through 361 voter restriction bills in 47 state legislatures. They're trying to change a lot of the laws they put in place for themselves. When we learned the law and started using it and winning, now they want to change the rules, like in Georgia.
Of bankruptcy, but I just want to say that the infrastructure plan and the families plan is good fiscal policy, the best fiscal policy we've had since President Lyndon Baines Johnson. And the only thing I'm concerned about is that I hope that the GAO, Government Accountability Office, has a continuous on-site review of the dollars, because a lot of those dollars are going to go directly to local authorities.
Okay, right. Yeah.
They're going to bypass the state, and I don't want the Republicans down the line to say, well, see, they put all that money out there, and there was no accountability.
Right. Well, you know, that reminds me of the stimulus plan under President Obama, and the money went to the state. And then what you had was you had some Republican governors that instead of sending the money like to down to like cities, some of that money they kept and balanced the budget, the state budget with it, and then ran for re-election on the platform of being able to balance the budget, but they were against the stimulus plan. See,
that's the same thing they did with when they passed the lotto. They said the money is going to the schools. And after they passed the lotto, they said, well, the money's going to go to the general fund, then we'll allocate the dollars to the schools.
Right. Follow the money.
And all the money didn't
Right. Follow the money. Okay. All right, William. Thanks for calling. Keep listening. Okay.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right. But see, back under President Obama, when they had the stimulus bill back like 2009, 2010, you had many Republicans that were against it. You had Republican governors who were against it. But they took some of that money to balance the state budget, then ran for re-election as governor partly on the platform that they balanced the budget. And they're so fiscally responsible and things like this. But you were against the stimulus bill. Okay. So check out this article here. We may talk about this some more on Sunday's show. I want to squeeze in this quickly. We're going to go to the clip from Roland Martin, Kevin. So I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered today. I'm a panelist every Friday. And we talked about Florida passes voting law that includes restrictions on vote by mail and Dropboxes. All right. We're going to go to this clip. I want to remind you that we're going to post a link here again. Remind you that my online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. It starts up Saturday, May 1st, 2021, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register there for it, and we posted a link here. Let's go to this clip, Kevin.
No, I mean, that's exactly what he was doing. He was sitting here. Kissing the butt of Donald Trump. That's exactly what he was doing, because it's all about pleasing the white Republicans in South Carolina, trying to curry favor with them. In fact, if you want to understand why he did it, all you got to do is understand how he was sitting here just talking about how, Donald Trump called him and praised him. This, of course, is Sir Tim Scott on Sean Hannity's show. This is why, Teresa, Senator Tim Scott said what he said and did not condemn the Georgia voter bill. And what did Donald Trump say to you today?
Number one, I'll start with good news and go to bad news. Good news is President Trump called me to tell me that he thought I did a spectacular job. President Trump, he's effusive in his phrase at times, and he said it was fantastic. It was spectacular. He really enjoyed listening to it. I'm glad that he listened to it, period. Number one, he wants to make sure that we keep working to get more things done for the country. Believe it or not, one of the things that we talked about for a very short period of time was how do we make progress for the most vulnerable. He is still focusing on getting things done from a policy standpoint by encouraging us to continue down the path that leads to American progress.
And what did Donald Trump say to you today? Now, we know damn well that's a lie, Teresa.
I would totally hope that call with Donald Trump was not about anything policy related to the United States of America. I don't know what this was in terms of how to keep Donald Trump relevant in the conversations of how to govern America. Because when he was in office, there was no governing. There was a lot of appeal where people scratched each other's backs and decided, when they lost the election, that they would try to put out additional policies and lawsuits and cover some of the things that they were doing inside of the office. So to see Senator Ted Scott, and really is almost like the poster child for the Republican Party, as they are, of course, I'm hearing that they're running him for president. It's not going to work. And I think people are really starting to really understand why Senator Tim Scott is there. But also, why
we're going to pause it right there. We're out of time here on 910 AM, the Superstation WFDF. Those watching us on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. Keep watching. We're going to keep broadcasting for a few more minutes. Right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. We'll talk to you Sunday night. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. We're going to keep going here. How's everybody doing? If you like this type of information, also, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. We're going to go to this clip here. Let me cue this up just a second. So you heard that segment of you heard that segment of Tim Scott on Sean Hannity's show. Let's go to this clip here.
Believe it or not, one of the things that we talked about for a very short period of time was how do we make progress for the most vulnerable? He is still focusing on getting things done from a policy standpoint by encouraging us to continue down the path that leads to American progress.
And what did Donald Trump say to you today? Now, we know damn well that's a lie, Teresa.
I would totally hope that that call with Donald Trump was not about anything policy related to the United States of America. I'll know what this was in terms of how to keep Donald Trump relevant in the conversations of how to govern America. Because when he was in office, there was no governing. There was a lot of appeal where people scratched each other's backs and decided, when they lost the election, that they would try to put out additional policies and lawsuits and cover some of the things that they were doing inside of the office. So to see Senator Ted Scott, and really is almost like the poster child for the Republican Party, as they are, of course, I'm hearing that they're running him for president. It's not going to work. And I think people are really starting to really understand why Senator Tim Scott is there, but also why they're trying to rebuild almost, the Republican Party to some of these interesting ways that some Republicans are just not used to.
So here, Ron Brownstein tweeted this out, Michael, and I think this really, I believe, explains exactly why Republicans are doing what they are doing. Let me pull this tweet up. I think it's important. This is what, let me zoom this in right here. This is what he said. Overlooked, even with huge increase in turnout last November, showing again Trump's appeal for them. Non-college whites fall below 40% of actual 2020 voters in new U.S. Census data for the first time, per William Fry of the Brookings Metro. He then said, even Trump's pull can't change the long-term arc. Since 2008, non-college whites have fallen from 51 to 41% of eligible voters and from 48 to 39% of actual. College plus whites have grown from 20 to 25.5% of early voters, 28% to 31% of actual voters. People of color up from 27 to 33% of eligible, 24 to 29% of voters. That right there is why Republicans are doing what they're doing, Michael, because they live off of those non-college whites. That number is dramatically falling. Other numbers are going up, benefiting Democrats.
Yeah, Roland, this all ties into the fear of the browning of America. This ties into also the white people having a negative birth rate in 26 states out of 50, as the U.S. Census Bureau announced in June 2018. And they're looking at the trajectory for the next 20, 30 years. They see they're declining in population, so they want to make it harder for people to vote. They want to suppress the votes as well. And, you would expect something like this from Florida, because, see, when you talked about, when we look at felony disenfranchisement, Florida was one of the few states where you lost your right to vote if you had a felony for life. Okay. And, the work that Brother Desmond Meade has been doing down in Florida, and you've been covering that, has been fighting against this. But, this is all part of this plan, this part of this backlash from the 2022 presidential election that was consequential. And African Americans and Hispanics and others realized the power of the vote, and they realized that Trump had to be stopped. So, they always come with this backlash in the courts and the state legislatures. Okay, it's just like 2013, Shelby County versus Holder, U.S. Supreme Court case. backlash to 2012 presidential election where President Barack Obama won a second term. That's what we're dealing with here. So we have to fight against this, and we have to keep up the pressure on the corporations to put pressure on the state legislatures as well. The work that Latasha Brown and others are doing, we have to keep this up, brother. But this is all-out war. We're going to have to engage in economic guerrilla warfare, as I've been saying.
Well, it's no doubt. And again, you're going to see more of this, Jason. You have folks like Mark Elias, largest committee for civil rights under law, NAACP, Legal Defense and Education Fund, and others saying we're going to battle this out in the courts, which is why it was so important, which is why Republicans held up more than 100 seats under President Obama and then gave the opportunity for Donald Trump, him appointing all those federal judges, more than 280. This is why, because they want them ruling in their favor once the lawsuits are filed.
Absolutely. You know, the judicial system is a backstop for everything. And so they knew, you know, it's not just the Supreme Court, it's district judges, all of that. They knew that a lot of their policies and ideas are going to go before judges. It's funny, though, with Donald Trump, when he was president, he couldn't even win in front of his own judges because a lot of times, you know, it was just no merit. There was no merit to a lot of their legal claims and lawsuits. And they would go in front of courts and lose in front of people that they put up there because they couldn't even fake it. We saw that with the last election. I agree with the last brother. You know, these changing demographics scare them. This is why a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Roland, he shall remain nameless, is talking about, you know, replacement and bringing this replacement theory out there.
Oh, I'm sorry. You mean the white supremacist Tucker Carlson?
You know, I'm not going to say anybody.
I will. White supremacist Tucker Carlson is leading the white nationalist network, Fox News, which is why that's right. So they called Jason. They ain't going to call me, but I'm going to go ahead and call
anymore either.
Oh, they go.
I criticized Tim Scott and it went crazy. They're not going to call me anymore.
Go ahead.
But look, I'm glad to be here on Black-owned media on Roland Martin Unfiltered. But yeah, I mean, that whole thing, this fear of being replaced, or this fear, and we heard that in Charlottesville, that's going to continue to drive even some of the policy that they have before them. They pretended to be for criminal justice reform, but we know in reality they want to stop us from voting, stop immigration, do anything they can to maintain the current demographics, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore. So I think the brother was correct. We need to continue to keep the pressure on economically and in any other means, and hopefully there will be some judges that can be appointed under this current administration.
Well, look, I have a book coming out in next year that's called White Fear. And in fact, it's so funny. Let me go ahead. I'm going to give y'all a sneak peek. All right, y'all. Nobody else has this. We actually have finalized what the title is going to be. And it's real simple. The book is going to be called White Fear: How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds.
It is. And this ties into the in 2016, going into 2017, there was a big article from Atlantic.com that did an analysis of the 2016 presidential election, and it talked about how it was. They used the term cultural anxiety. Okay, they didn't say white supremacy or fear of a brown of America. They said it was cultural anxiety that drove the non-white college-educated voters to vote for Donald Trump. Okay, and he hit those cultural issues, and this is exactly what we're seeing.
Teresa, people need to understand what's going on here.
All right,
white conservative.
We're gonna pause it right there. Okay, so that was today on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We had a short show with the panel because Roland had to do a simulcast with the Young Turks. But all of this is connected. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. All this is connected. Okay. So people who telling you don't vote and all this stuff, they're not being honest with you. They're not telling you how all of this is connected. and how politics impacts every aspect of our lives, from the water we drink to the food we eat to the air we breathe. Okay, all of this is connected. All right, I want to go to, let's see here. 1 second. All right. So we have that. I want to go to this clip here. This is Senator Tim Scott. I want to revisit his comments briefly from Wednesday night. Okay. So just 1 second here. Oh, and then the Florida bill. Okay. We talked about the Florida bill at the beginning of the show, beginning rolling show today. And there's an article from NBCnews.com. I'm going to show you here in just a minute. So check out that article as well. And we'll probably talk some more about this on our Sunday show. But the Florida bill, what it would do is, if passed, this bill, now the bill has, Florida's legislature passed an election bill Thursday that includes restrictions on drop boxes and voting by mail over the concerns of Democrats and voting rights activists that the restriction would amount to voter suppression. All right. Both the House and the Senate passed the bill Thursday after weeks of negotiations between Republicans in both bodies. The bill is poised to be signed into law by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who has already blessed efforts to enact restrictions along these lines. Now, the bill passed the Florida State Senate by a vote of 23-17 and passed the Florida State House by a vote of 77-40. So the bill will limit the ability of drop boxes to early voting hours and limit who can collect and drop off ballots. It will also ban outside groups from giving water to voters near polling places. Okay. And I want to look at this here. Yeah. Ban the new legislation. Okay. And then the bill also require, it will add more identification requirements for absentee ballots. It will require voters to request an absentee ballot every election. It will empower partisan observers during the ballot counting process. Empower partisan observers during the ballot counting process. All right, I want to flip over. I want to look at this article here from this one here is from NBCnews.com. Let's pull this up. And then let me cue up this clip here also. So the article from where is this one here? Okay. The article from NBC News, Florida passes voting law that includes restrictions on vote by mail and drop boxes. Okay. Now, back in 2018, you remember Andrew Gillum, who was the mayor of Tallahassee, Florida. Andrew Gillum ran for governor. Okay. And Andrew Gillum lost by I can't remember whether it's 50,000 votes or something like that. Okay. If Andrew Gillum had become governor of the state of Florida, I guarantee you Andrew Gillum would have vetoed this bill if it passed the Florida state legislature. If Andrew Gillum had become governor of Florida, if this bill came across his desk, he would have vetoed this bill. Now, you had some African Americans in Florida who didn't vote for Andrew Gillum. They said he doesn't have a black agenda, blah, blah, blah. But you let somebody get in office who has an anti-black agenda. And Andrew Gillum's policies were much better than Ron DeSantis' policies. A policy does not have to say Black or African American to benefit you. And if you're trying to get elected in Florida, you're not going to get elected running on no red, black, and green Black agenda. Not the governor. That's not going to happen. You have to be able to look at the policies and see whose policies are most beneficial to you. If Andrew Gillum had become governor of Florida, when this bill came across his desk, he would have vetoed the bill. This is understanding political self-defense. It's not only about what a candidate or a politician can do for you, it's also about understanding how to block and stop what people are trying to do to you. So the people who said they weren't going to vote for Andrew Gillum because he didn't have a Black agenda did not see Ron DeSantis coming, who's a Trump supporter. The same thing in Georgia. You had some African Americans who said they weren't going to vote for Stacey Abrams because she didn't have a Black agenda. But your dumb ass let Brian Kemp get in office, and Brian Kemp has an anti-Black agenda. The governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, who signed into law SB 202 within an hour of it passing the state legislature. He didn't even read the bill. The voter restriction bill, Senate Bill 202, he signed that into law. It's not only about what a candidate or a politician can do for you, it's about understanding how to block what they're trying to do to you. It's understanding political self-defense. All right, let's look at this one here. This is from NBC News. This article here, Florida passes voting law that includes restrictions on vote by mail and drop boxes. Okay, very quickly. So Florida's legislature passed an election bill Thursday that includes restrictions on drop boxes and voting by mail over the concerns of Democrats and voting rights activists that the restrictions would amount to voter suppression. That say the restrictions would amount to voter suppression. Now, while an earlier proposal would have banned the use of ballot drop boxes outright, the new legislation would allow their use as long as election officials follow new constraints. Limits on who could drop off voters' ballots at drop boxes, a ban on moving drop boxes within 30 days of election, restrictions on where drop boxes could be placed, and a requirement that they would all have to be monitored by elections officials whenever they're open. Now, the bill would also require voters to request to vote by mail more regularly, prohibit election officials from using private money to help pay for election administration, restrict third-party voter registration organizations, add new powers for partisan election observers, and give Governor Ron DeSantis the leeway to appoint replacements to fill certain local political positions vacated by people running for higher office. Give Governor Ron DeSantis the leeway to appoint replacements to fill certain local political positions vacated by people running for higher office. Now, Democrats say the last provision is targeted at local officials looking to run in a special election to replace Democratic U.S. House of Representatives member Representative Alcee Hastings, whose death left an opening in the Democratic-heavy Miami area. Democratic State Senator Audrey Gibson said the measure was an attempt to create a monarchy by giving the governor more power. I bet the people who said we're not going to vote for Andrew Gillum because he didn't have a black agenda, I bet your ass didn't see this coming. Republicans softened language that would have prohibited handing out items to voters within 150 feet of polling places, including food and water, except by elections officials. The legislation would now ban anyone from engaging in any activity with the intent to influence or effect of influencing a voter, but allow election supervisors to provide nonpartisan assistance, such as giving items to voters within the restricted zones. Okay, so read the rest of this article here. You'll hear more about this. Remember where you heard about it first. Florida passes voting law that includes restrictions on vote by mail and drop boxes. Democratic State Representative Omari Hardy blasted the legislation as the revival of Jim Crow in Florida. The revival of Jim Crow in Florida. You remember during the gubernatorial debate, remember when it was Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum, okay? Remember when Andrew Gillum said, I'm not saying Mr. DeSantis is a racist. I'm saying the racists believe he's a racist. You remember that? Hashtag we tried to tell you. Okay, so we've got that. And let's see here. Who we have here? We got Becky. We got John Ray. Visit John Ray's website, workingwithjohnray.com, workingwithjohnray.com. He has some great financial advice. He teaches about income shifting, which helps you keep more of the money that you make. Visit his website, workingwithjohnray.com, workingwithjohnray.com. All right, now, let's see here. Okay, we got the, I want to play this clip of Tim Scott. Now that we put all this in perspective, right? Let's go back to this. Now you're going to hear Vice President Kamala Harris and Tim Scott. We talked about this on a Thursday show, okay? But I want you to hear Tim Scott again.
Threats to our national security is domestic terrorism manifested by white supremacists. And so these are issues that we must confront. And it does not help to heal our country, to unify us as a people, to ignore the realities of that. I don't think America is a racist country, but we also do have to speak truth about the history of racism in our country and its existence today.
People are making money and gaining power by pretending we haven't made any progress at all, by doubling down on the divisions we've worked so hard to heal. You know this stuff is wrong. Hear me clearly. America is not a racist country. It's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination. And it's wrong to try to use our painful past to dishonestly shut down debates in the present.
Let's confront the realities and let's deal with it, knowing we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And the idea is that we want to unify the country, but not without speaking truth and requiring accountability as appropriate.
So, because when you go read, now we went in depth into this on a Thursday show, and we compared the statements of Tim Scott, who didn't want to deal with systemic racism and talk about that, and Vice President Kamala Harris, who said we have to be honest about racism and deal with systemic racism. We went through her statements and compared those to Tim Scott's. She wants to talk about systemic racism and deal with it. He just said I want you to listen to this, because this what he just said ties into Lindsey Graham attacking the $5 billion in the American Rescue Plan for Black farmers. Okay. He just said that you can't use discriminatory policies to address discrimination.
In the present.
Let's confront the
To dishonest with different types of discrimination.
Let's look at this.
You know this stuff is wrong. Hear me clearly. America is not a racist country. It's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination. And it's wrong to try to use our painful past to dishonestly shut down debates in the present.
It's backwards to fight discrimination
Let's confront
with another form of discrimination.
It's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination.
It's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination. Joe Biden signed the American Rescue Plan into law that allocated $5 billion to the black farmers, including black farmers in South Carolina, where Senator Tim Scott and Senator Lindsey Graham are. But they're not dealing with policies to address the issues and concerns of African American farmers. In this history, so Lindsey Graham wants to attack them getting the money, but he don't want to be honest about why they had to have the money. The past 100 years of discrimination and racism against African American farmers. This is the game they're running. Okay. So we got that. And then we'll post this here. Okay, to Cash App and PayPal. $ the AHN show through Cash App and through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. All right, I'm going to post this link here. There was this article we talked about this Thursday. This is from CNN, and it has the clip of Senator Tim Scott and Vice President Kamala Harris. Biden and Harris respond to Tim Scott's claim that U.S. is not racist, stressing racism must not be ignored. Also, Tim Scott did not call out white domestic terrorism, because Kamala Harris called it out, and she said that's one of the biggest threats to America, white domestic terrorism. So in this article, it shows her comments from the interview on Good Morning America. And they're very different than Tim Scott. Then you have to have policies put in place to address the history. You have to have policies in place to address the history. Let's see here. Okay, so check that out as well. You can read that. All right, be sure to, who still needs to register for my online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Let me know. We'll post the link again. If you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, right on the home page, you scroll down, it has information for the radio show here. You can click the link to listen to the audio podcast of the shows. Click here to read articles I've written. Has information here for the online course. Starts up Saturday, May 1st, 2021. It's 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we do the class live, because a lot of people kept asking me about that. What if I missed the class? We do the class live. We record all of the classes. All the classes are automatically recorded. They're automatically archived. So you can go back and watch them over and over again, even if you missed the class. You'll still have access to the class once the whole course is over with also. Click right here to enroll. And this is a 9-week, 18-hour online course. We'll meet for 9 consecutive Saturdays. You can watch from around the world. You can be in your pajamas if you want to. I won't be in my pajamas. You can watch from around the world. You can be in your pajamas if you want to. I won't be in my pajamas, okay? Because you'll be able to see me. I won't be able to see you, okay? So, but I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book articles. We have articles, book references, video clips, everything. We do thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So when we deal with the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start talking about it in 1441 with the Portuguese going into Mauritania. We can't start in 1619 in Virginia. We have to deal with thousands of years of history that led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. And we also have to deal with the fact that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America. And we've been in this land that we call the United States of America going back at least 51,700 years. Okay, at least 51,700 years. We look at this book here from Dr. David Imhotep. The first Americans were Africans, documented evidence. The first Americans were Africans, documented evidence. So this is one of the books I use in the class. Now, you don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in class, okay? You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in class. You'll be able to follow along even if you don't have the book. All right. If you want to buy it for your library and everything, that's fine. Okay. But you don't have to feel obligated to buy any of the books to follow along in class. All right. Now, okay. So if you're at work when you take the class, that's fine. Keep in mind it's all recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. Okay, so don't worry about that. Let's see here. What was I gonna do? Let me see. We have this clip. Let me see. I'll show you this clip here. I show it in class. And you've seen the interviews I've done with Dr. David Imhotep. He's a friend of mine, author of The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. His new book, I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and I have to call him back also. His new book will be out within about a month. He's working on getting the footnotes finished. He's just working on the footnotes and the bibliography. Okay, that's what he's working on. And like he has pictures in there. He's trying to get permission to use the pictures, but that's everything else is basically done. I want to go to this clip here. And one of the things we do in the class, we deal with a lot of the new archaeological discoveries that are coming out. Okay. So, and when these archaeological discoveries come out, they are causing all the scientists and archaeologists and paleontologists to rethink everything. Let's see here. Let's go to this clip.
Wow, I wish you saying that we have a picture of the book too. It's The First Americans Were Africans, and we were talking about Dr. Ivan Van Sertima because I remember back in the 1980s, my dad took me to hear him. He came here to Cincinnati, and his book was They Came Before Columbus, and he talked about how Africans were here. He had a lot of, great research information, and so it was just kind of eye-opening. But we haven't heard a lot about that recently. So tell us how you got involved here.
I'm showing that Africans not only came before Columbus, they came before the Indians.
So you're going even farther back.
I'm going farther back, at least 56,000 years old.
Okay, now we've got a graphic up here about 130,000 years ago.
Yeah, well, they sailed over here. And when I lecture, people say, well, wait a minute, humans weren't sailing alone. They were boating 130,000 years ago. And I beg to differ. Last year, New York Times quoted the BBC, and they wrote an article on how in Crete they have found a stone industry of stone tools dating back to at least 130,000 years. And Crete has been an island in the middle of the Mediterranean for 5 million years. So they had to sail, and it was a continuous civilization, which means they were going back and forth. They knew how to navigate. So if they got to Crete 130,000 years ago, it's easy 70,000 years later that they could make it to the Americans at 56,000 years ago.
Right. That's really. Now, how did you even get back to this research? I mean, this is just. Did you start by reading They Came Before Columbus, and then you expanded on that research?
Yes. You see, 36 years ago, Dr. Van Sertima's book came out, and this information is piled on for 36 years. So many different things, so many cutting-edge articles and things have been found since then.
Yeah, and so what's the reaction you get when you talk about how Africans came here even before Native Americans?
People are amazed. They're shocked. They're shocked. First comes shocks, and then they're smiling, and some frown, of course.
And then, and what about the school systems? Because, have we gotten this information to the educational system?
Not yet. The book has only been out for a month and a half.
And what kind of feedback are you getting now when you go around and talk about this? I mean, I'm assuming you're doing lectures around the country.
Yeah, well, I always bring my peer-reviewed articles.
Okay.
Because my thesis, which is the same as my title, The First Americans Were Africans, is backed up by 7, soon to be 8, peer-reviewed journal articles, which is the height of academia.
Wow. And so you've got credibility. I mean, people can see this research. What do you think? Do you think this is going to change history at all?
Well, for hundreds of years in Europe, people thought that the world was flat. And it took a while for them to be able to say the world was round in order to go out there and navigate and see that it was indeed round. So it's going to take a little while for them to be around this, but it will happen.
And so what part of Africa were the Africans from who came to Brazil?
Well, the DNA, the Genome Project found that the earliest ones, the ones that they found in Tierra del Fuego, the very tip of South America, in 1874, 1876, were the short Africans, the Khoisan, who spoke clicks like that. The gods must be crazy to this. A movie on
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yes. So they have
about the Coca-Cola bottle selling, yeah.
Yes, they have the oldest DNA and the oldest language on the planet, and they were all over.
Oh, wow.
All over all 3 Americas, as well as Asia.
Well, have they done any DNA tests in Brazil to see that?
Yes, they have. The Genome Project went all around the world. There were 100,000 people participating.
Wow.
Taking DNA swabs.
And so first we know that it's possible to get over here by canoe, and second of all, the DNA from that group of Africans is in Brazil.
The most important thing, not to forget, to ask me, well, I will tell you that. Where do the Native Americans come from? Well, we've always been taught that they came across the Bering Straits from Asia. This is true, but they did not come until 3000 BC. There is no evidence of them coming before 3000 BC. So for 53,000 years, there were nothing but Africans in North, Central, and South America.
Wow.
When they come over 3000 BC, those two groups, the Africans and the Mongolians, get together, Asians, get together, and their children are the Native Americans.
Wow.
This is why the Native Americans do not look Chinese. They are a little different than Chinese.
Right. Oh, that's, what, I mean, we need to learn. It makes a lot of sense, Dr. Imhotep, and we need to learn our history. Wow, I wish you saying that we have a picture of the book too. It's
so
first Americans
that was
were Africans, and we were talking about Dr. Sertima's.
That's a clip from back in I think it was 2011. Back in 2011 on WKRP in Cincinnati, Channel 5, they did an interview with Dr. David Imhotep about his book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. So that's an excerpt of that interview. Let me see something here. Okay, that's an excerpt of that interview. I'm going to show you the slide here. The picture of the woman and the baby, that's a picture of a Khoisan woman. And the Khoisan have the oldest DNA on the planet. They come from Southern Africa. They're the ancestors to the Ainu and the Twa. They go all around the world. Okay. So let's look at this here. I just want to show you this quickly. And I have to get out of here. Here's some of the things that we deal with in the 9-week online course. It's going to meet each Saturday. The course that just ended, I was doing that on Tuesdays, but it's tough doing it on Tuesdays because I have to turn around and do my show. I was doing the class 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Tuesdays, and my radio show at 11 p.m. And that was tough. But Saturday's the only day I don't do radio, so this works out better to do it on Saturday. Okay, so we do a what was the transatlantic slave trade? What were some of the events that led up to the transatlantic slave trade starting? What role did Christopher Columbus play? Because Columbus is very crucial to the transatlantic slave trade expanding. Okay. We deal with when did Africans first come to the U.S. as slaves? Did Africans sell themselves into slavery? We deal with that complicated history. Were African people in America before the slave trade? Yeah, we've been in this land going back at least 51,700 years ago. And there's new evidence that pushes that back even farther. The 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. Shocking archaeological discoveries that are causing experts to rethink everything. Like the lost city of Egypt that was just found that dates back 3,000 years ago. That was just found in the last few weeks. Okay, that was just discovered in the last few weeks. We talk about insurance companies that took out policies on slave ships and enslaved Africans on the plantations. We deal with also the great West African kingdoms, Ghana, Songhai, and Mali. We talk about Freemasonry, America, and the Founding Fathers, the origins of the term America and Africa, and a lot more as well. Okay. Asar, Aset, and Heru, and the origins of the Immaculate Conception story. Links to ancient Kemet in early Christianity, in the fake Willie Lynch letter of 1712, because Willie Lynch never historically existed. The letter's been proven to be a fraud. So these are just a few of the things that we deal with in the online class, okay? All right, so you can register for that. We have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.